Hello and welcome to Criticaleye Asia podcast, inspiring leaders to succeed. I'm Charlie Wagstaff, your host, co-founder and MD here at Criticaleye. Wonderful to have you here today. We're going to explore the fascinating and I think subject, mentoring, a theme that we often discuss, but really what is it that it involves? I want to get under the skin of what mentoring means and to be able to enable us to understand what great mentoring looks like. What we're going to be looking at is exploring the subject with one of our board mentors. And we're going to be looking at what, as an individual, this has meant for them in terms of their career and how it has supported them to get to where they want to. But also now, sitting in the unique position of being a mentor, it's enabling them to bring observations about what they do and what they love about this. I'll share a quote with you. We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. It's from Winston Churchill. I think it's very pertinent to our session. So really appreciate you sharing your observations, Bala. I suppose a quick intro to yourself, if you'd be good enough to be able to do that.
Thanks, Charlie. I'm Bala Swaminathan. I'm based out of Singapore. Currently run a fund and investment banking business. But more importantly, I work with a lot of young companies, young entrepreneurs as they're building their startups to become unicorns. I mentor them, work with them quite actively. But before that, in my previous life, I was the head of Wagstaff's international business, the head of corporate banking for Standard Chartered, and before that for CFO and corporate banking at ICICI. But I started off as an accountant with KPMG, where I was a partner in their India business.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, we're going to deal with, I think, one that I think will set a good context, a question that I think will set a good context on the subject matter. And again, I'm going to be using a quote to act as a catalyst. So it was Steve Jobs who said, management is about persuading people to do things they do not want to do, while leadership is about inspiring people to do things they never thought they could. And arguably a far better place to be. You didn't add that bit, by the way. What I'd like to be able to say is that mentoring, I would argue, is a bridge that we transport people through when moving between management and leadership. Do you think that's the case, Bala?
I think that's absolutely the case. I think mentoring is probably it's little more than a bridge. I think it brings to light what both management and leadership want to do. I think in some ways management is caught up in the objectives of achieving their day-to-day or month-to-month or quarter-to-quarter visions, which is usually about profit and loss, balance sheet, increased number of customers. So the metrics which management drives is very granular and very quantitative. Leadership, on the other hand, is trying to build an organization. It wants an organization to last a lifetime and very often beyond lifetimes. I worked for Westpac, and when I was there, that celebrated 200 years of existence. So how do you build organizations which last 100 years, 200 years? That is what leadership is. And that is about vision, that is about passion, and that is indeed, as you rightly said, is going much beyond where management wants to go. But this can be very esoteric to people. I mean, the leadership sitting where it is, given its experience, given that they are literally God's gift to mankind in some ways, are able to see the picture much better and bigger than some of the others. How do you, and coming back to what I said, how do you bring that to light and then relate it to the metrics which management have? There has to be a connection between the day-to-day, quarter-to-quarter metrics which management have and the much broader vision which leadership has. And that needs to be brought to light by either a mentor or a coach who is sitting on a non-political agenda, who's not bothered about, what the key metrics metrics are, but is helping bridge that, to use your word. I think it's absolutely right. Is mentor is that bridge who can bring the vision of the leader and the metrics of the manager into common ground.
Thank you, Bala. Working as you do with a number of our mentees, I know one of the places you have found yourself is enabling and supporting that transition for an individual to step up into a group role or a divisional role and moving away from the functional. What is it that you think people find it so difficult about making that transition? What holds them back? What is it they can't see? And in so making those observations, what do you do as a mentor to support them make that transition?
I'll have to talk to you from my own life, Charlie, if I will.
Please.
When I was an accountant, as I said earlier, partner with KPMG in the audit business, and when I joined my first bank, ICICI, as the chief financial officer, it was largely a functional role. It was to make sure that as the chief financial officer, we are producing a set of financials which are accurate and which are able to communicate to the stakeholders the affairs of the business. Couple of years later, when the chairman asked me to move on to become the head of the corporate bank and take on a business role, the biggest challenge I faced was, how do I move from the dance floor to the balcony? As a chief financial officer, I was on the dance floor, dancing, preparing numbers, looking at balance sheet. And as I moved to becoming the head of the corporate bank, I was dealing with a set of business people and now motivating them through a very different set of metrics and having to have more oversight than doing it myself, which is what I was doing as a chief financial officer. At that point of time, I had a very good mentor who incidentally just last week or earlier this week got India's big of Padma Shri, which is recognized as it's one of the biggest honors civilians can get for stupendous work that she has done for corporate India. And I can say that one of the things she did in mentoring me was to make sure that I'm constantly elevating myself up to the balcony and looking at businesses rather than saying, let me go down to influencing and repairing the business. So I think the biggest challenge in my mind when functional people move to leadership or general management roles is making that difference of becoming leaders, coaches, having much more oversight role in what they do rather than doing it themselves.
Bala, spot on. Thank you very much. So I think that's a very important point, and I love the reference, Bala, to the dance floor and the balcony. I think though what that probably doesn't infer sufficiently is who should actually in fact be in the driving seat at these meetings. Is it the mentor or is it the mentee?
That's a tough question to answer in itself, because I think it's actually a team job. It's a bit of a driver and a navigator driving a car. Would the driver be able to do the job without the navigator? No. Would the navigator be able to navigate without the driver? No. I think it's a team job, but the agenda has to be set by the mentee. And I'm using the word setting the agenda as opposed to driving the car, because I think driving is a team effort. But agenda setting is more the mentee. The mentee must know or must be able to dictate what he or she wants from that session with the mentor. It's only then that the mentor can actually bring out real life experiences, talk to maybe not his or her own experiences, but some of their colleague experiences, and bring to life what the mentee needs to think about. If the mentor sits in the driving seat, I think the mentor becomes a preacher, and that's not what you want. You want it to be, I'm not even using the word counselor here, because I don't see that as my relationship with some of my mentees. I'm actually a friend to them. I'm guiding them when they need me. I'm talking to them when they need me. So they are driving the agenda. Once the agenda is set, I think the conversation then, in some ways, the mentor takes over. But really, so it's a team effort, Charlie, I would think.
No, I think that's a very balanced response. I suppose that sometimes the mentor is someone who they feel that they might be looking up to, and who therefore has got to steer them. when ultimately the only way that anyone can be steered in the right direction is that they know where the destination is. And obviously it is a team effort, but the mentee has really got to open up. They've got to be able to give some indications of where their stress points are and where they might be needing support. So therefore they've got to own the agenda and come to the event, let's call it, prepared in some way, shape or form. What do you think they need to come prepared with? Could you give some observations on that?
So in my recent experiences, and I'm talking more real life experiences. In fact, I'm right now going through a conversation with one of my mentees, and they're having a difficult time with their shareholders. It's a company which got sold to a larger company, and the new company shareholders or the founders want to drive the company differently than how this person has driven. I think that person navigate those conversations, helping the person get to an outcome without it become political, and getting to the outcome, removing maybe the emotion of it based on facts. Some of the things I'm helping this particular mentee with. Another case where I dealt with a mentee, it's a bigger organization, they had a particularly difficult human resource issue, which because the organization was staffed with unions, and they needed to figure a way of being authentic in their communication and being seen as someone who is willing to help the employees and therefore communicating to the unions. They are there to help. And they're not someone who is someone sent from head office to basically take out every single dollar from the business. So I think in some ways, in that particular case, it was developing authentic communication with the person I was mentoring. So different situations require different skills to be brought. And indeed, I would say different mentors to be brought. I don't think one size fits all. I don't think one mentor can solve all the issues that a particular mentee has. So I think an organization like Criticaleye, which can actually bring in a group of people to address different situations that a particular mentee faces, I think is more appropriate. And I go back to my favorite sport always, Charlie, which is cricket. And if you remember, there was a time 30 years ago when a cricket team would have a coach for the team. And now you have a batting coach, you have a bowling coach, you have a fielding coach, and you have different coaches for different things. And that helps bring the team entirely together. It doesn't mean that the main coach can't do all of this. That person is absolutely a great sportsman themselves, but it requires different skill sets from different sets of people to be able to bring together a great team. And I sometimes think that one mentor, one mentee may not be always the right answer.
No, I think you're right. And I think to support that sentiment, one of the observations we've made is that leadership, in order to make a considerable change in direction, needs not one point of reference, but multiple points of reference.
Yes.
The board mentor is a very powerful steer, and the board mentor is supported in their role by enabling that individual to, and encouraging, I should say, individuals to speak with other people. And that then gives them a rounded picture. Let's build on a theme, and Bala, is that good mentors arguably help you navigate life's challenges. We, as great mentors, they look to empower individuals to overcome them. How do you empower your mentee? Because they've got to own it, haven't they, Bala?
Yeah, it comes back to what I said earlier. The mentee has to own the agenda. And I think part of empowerment, maybe there are a few parts to empowerment. I think the first part to empowerment in my mind is genuineness. So if the mentee is genuine about the challenges they face, remove the politics out of the challenges they face, the emotion out, and are able to talk to the mentor about finding a solution. I think that's the first. The mentor must give the mentee that sort of safe environment where the mentee can talk about their challenges without any worry or tension, or without worrying that their politics could get back to the organization or whatever. So to some extent, part of empowerment is independent mentoring, which allows that safe environment. The second thing is trust. I think the mentee will feel empowered if the mentee believes that the mentor has their best interests at heart. So in some ways, when you're navigating or steering the mentee conversation in whichever way, I think that conversation has to be done from a place of trust. So I think to become, I mean, we've used words like critical sounding board in the past, which are cliches. But I think the important thing is, if the mentee and the mentor develop a sense of trust, I think that itself will lead to empowerment. And the third thing, I think, which in a very funny way, I find this, Charlie, in some of the younger organizations that I am mentoring, some of the younger mentees that I'm mentoring, is there are objectives which we set. Whatever the objectives are, I mean, in these organizations, it is about, getting to the next phase, maybe raising capital, maybe getting 20 new customers. And as the mentees are able to see success coming in the business, they feel more empowered. I think empowerment does come from success. So I think one element of the mentor-mentee relationship is to develop a set of metrics which can look back in 6 months or 12 months and says, did we achieve that? I think if that's achieved, mentees will feel more empowered.
Bala, thank you so very, very much indeed. Thank you for enabling us to get underneath the bonnet of what mentoring is about. It is something that we're extremely passionate about as an organization. It's something that we feel that we do differentiate in. So, Bala, thank you for sharing your insights.
You're most welcome.